Okay, this is the Skunk Works. This is if you ever bring a special project to Butler and you don't want anybody to know about it, we work on it back here. It's all top secret stuff. But I'll let you in today because it's Saturday and nobody's around. We're not working any special top secret things. This is another one of those Prada iron workers. This is a P50 Prada iron worker. And you can go on our website and you can see a story about this one. This was made in the late 60s and we bought it in the early 70s. And here it's 2009 and it's still working. And it's not still working because we never use it, because you can obviously see that we use it a lot. It's working because it's fixable. It's a good piece of equipment. We still cut plate over here, the old school way, where we use the track burner and a torch. Here's our track table. There's a couple pieces of paper and stuff on it that really shouldn't be here. Obviously, we wouldn't cut with the paper on here, but this just kind of goes to show the old school shop. There's a bench up here hanging on the wall. And that bench was built in the 30s. And it's got almost everybody that's ever worked here up until the late 80s names carved into it. And the significance about that bench is there's a wood burning stove right over here. And anybody who worked in the shop would sit in the morning time, they'd fire up this wood burning stove to keep warm, and they'd sit on that bench and they'd carve their names into it. This year we sent out a Christmas card with hot dogs, with all the workers. We'll get you a copy of it too. With everybody that worked here holding hot dogs on a stick and potatoes on a stick. But the stories go that during the 30s, during the Depression, that was the way guys used to eat lunch over here. They used to sit on that bench and stick hot dogs and potatoes on a stick in the fire, and they'd cook it up for lunch. I always do so. So these machines right here are they're power hammers. This is a Little Giant 100-pound power hammer. Here's a Little Giant 50-pound and a Little Giant 25-pound power hammer. These were tools that were used in our industry up until maybe the early 40s. These are basically blacksmith tools. These are tools that I've collected and I've restored myself. And this area here is part of my blacksmith shop that I do a lot of work. Not necessarily Butler production work, but it's kind of a hobby part of the shop. We could still do blacksmith work, and this would be some of the equipment that you would use for doing that work. The machines have all been rebuilt and retrofit to run on 110 AC motors as opposed to a single line shaft. There's a picture of a line shaft in the back over there. When you see the excusometer, just above that was the 3 pulleys that were the remainders of our line shaft. A line shaft is it's a single shaft that had a series of pulleys on it, and there was a belt that came off of each pulley that went to a piece of equipment. Before you had electric motors, or before you had electricity for that matter, you had a line shaft, and that's where you got the power to run some of your big machines. Out in front of the shop, there's a big fly press, or not a fly press, a big punch, and that was driven off a line shaft. There's also a drill press, and that was driven off a line shaft too. You can see the pulleys on top of the machine that accepted the belt. Over at Butler, we had a steam boiler that heated the shop, and it also drove a dynamo, which was a steam engine that drove the line shaft from our shop. And again, this area here was where, the reason why these hammers are here, this was where the blacksmith shop always was in the foundry. There's a bricked up opening here. This was a door that led out to our yard where we kept livestock. I don't know when they bricked it up, but after that, obviously we couldn't use livestock. We couldn't go in the yard to get the livestock out of here. But this is where the old blacksmith shop was. This is our staging yard. This sits between all the buildings. It's the core yard. We park our trucks back here. And there's just a bunch. It's kind of a collection of a bunch of good old iron too. There's a lot of pieces in the back over there. There are window grills that were blacksmith made, and there's a lot of pieces of cast iron, furnace doors, kind of stuff that Butler made. There's also a lid that's a Butler Street made lid. We have it on there. It's a yard, but it's kind of a bit of a museum too. Probably like the rest of the places. This whole place is a museum and it still works. And by the way, we also keep bees here. The bees are up on the roof. Next year we'll have our first harvest of honey. I think we're going to call it Ferris honey for iron. So stay tuned. Take it easy.